Anything could happen. Can't hear me? Can you hear me
No,
now?
can now.
Oh, as I said, property storm continues in WA, and anything could happen because I'm recording this in a little chalet in a caravan park in, where are we? Gracetown. I've just finished this morning, today, with a mate of mine. We just finished the Cape to Cape track, 125 kilometres for a little grey-haired old man. We're pooped, to put it bluntly. In fact, we're bucketed, to put it bluntly. But welcome. Yeah, welcome. I'm TV. He's Oscar de Souza. This is now episode 72 of Property Avenue WA, where we discuss, we review, we exchange opinions, and we have a bit of a giggle, and we provide information associated with WA property matters. So there's an element of seriousness, but we try to be a bit relaxed. Tonight we've got no set plan, which surprise, but we thought, why not do it? Let's give it a crack. And we're going to get Oscar to give us a bit of an overview if he's had the time. I know he's been super busy of the Southwest, which is where we are at the present time, or where I am. We'll also do OD stats and review the rental and the sales market in the Perth metropolitan area, and the storm and the rain that we've had in the last 24 hours, or less than 24 hours. I mean, that's probably worth a little chat about, because already we've got a trade and building industry under an enormous amount of pressure. This doesn't help the cause. We will have a little bit of a natter about the Cape to Cape track, of course. And it's been really interesting because during that track, we came across a number of people, and we caught up with some people and had a chat about property, would you believe? And one of the questions that was raised to me with a young lady that we met was, you're not allowed to refer to a master bedroom anymore. It's not good. It's part of the woke society. So there you go. Mate, welcome. How was your week? There we are. We're ready.
TV, good evening, viewers, and for listeners as well. Always great to be here, mate. And yeah, my week has been fantastic. No complaints. Health is good. Family's good. And the real estate world that I operate in is also very good here in WA, be it the rentals or even the sales market, which I don't really have much to do with. I just keep track of what's going on sales-wise, but obviously all my time's devoted to the rental market. So, yeah, it's all about family, health, and real estate for me at the moment, which I'm very happy with. But really, I think the last 7 days has been all about you and what you've been doing with that close mate of yours so far as the Cape to Cape walk. And I'd be very disappointed if we didn't get to touch on a few of the highs and maybe a couple of the lows over the next 45 minutes, even though all this show is about real estate.
Well, it is a bit about property, and what I've done down here was intrigued about what was going on and some of the locations of the properties where we've been walking. And can I also contradict you? He is sitting in the room, but to sit around and say, I walk with a close mate, that's a very hard ask. You put up with him for 7 days, mate. Trust me, I'm a very brave man as far as I'm concerned. Really, truly. No, we had a good time, and we were pretty chuffed when we finished today. But lots of people. What intrigued me was the number of people that were doing that, that were women that were doing, and I don't say that, I say that with the greatest of respect, but what I was intrigued about was the number of ladies and younger girls doing it. In fact, we passed a young girl this morning who was doing it on her own. So that was really, we sort of wished her well, because we only did our finish today only had about 12 Ks to finish off the whole lot. And she still had a long way to go, and there's a lot of weather came in. No, probably 10, 15 minutes after we finished, although we got some rain, nothing like what came in later on. And these girls in particular are all out camping. They're not just coming into a chalet like we did every day. They're out there camping. So, it's
TV, tell me, I don't know why I'm out of the loop, but I've seen on social media a couple of other people that I know that have also been doing this Cape to Cape over the last week as well. So is it something that happens this time every year? Is it done just over this last week, or is there a bit of a season for it, or a month that everyone decides to do this Cape to Cape walk?
It's probably this time of the year is the best time to do it. What intrigued us was the flora and fauna. You know, the flowers, and we talk about. I mean, we're from the Midwest, and we experience what the wildflower situation, the Gascoyne and the Murchison, and areas of that nature. But it was really, really interesting to me. And I've lived down in Denmark back in the day, right down south. But just to walk through the countryside we've done. So we've gone from Cape Naturalist down to Cape Lewin, and so that's down in Augusta. And to go through the countryside, both on the beach and then through all sorts of terrain, and to experience. This morning we went through, and I'll post the photos later because I haven't had time, but we went through some areas this morning from Margaret River so our drop off, our finish point today. So we finished Augusta yesterday because of the way we were doing it, because we were dropping cars off from point to point. But so we went today, we did our last 12 Ks, concerned about the weather. So we clocked up a few extra Ks the last 2 or 3 days because we knew the weather was coming in today. But where we walked today was just phenomenal. And you could swear, I took some video, it was like someone's amazing garden. It was just phenomenal. And to see some of the videos, there was stuff like that that just blew us away.
Yeah. And in total, 125 Ks, is it?
Yep. So we've done, and we did that in 5 and a bit days, which was not what we were planning to do, especially at our stage in life. But we did it, and we had a big celebration today when we finished. We came in and sorted lunch and got ourselves organised and got dry and showered. And
went to sleep.
No, he had 2 0 beers and I had 2 mid-strength beers, and we went out to sleep for an hour. But so I think the reason being that people do it now is because of the weather. Even on the weekend where the weather was 23, 24 degrees, it was quite warm. You're going through sections there where you're down out of the wind and it gets pretty hot. So obviously it's ideal this time of the year. It's a bit cooler. Probably the wildflowers and that are out. And so I think it's probably is the time to do it for sure. And we were lucky to get our accommodation for this week that we wanted to do the walk. Otherwise we might have had a bit of a problem.
Yeah, right. Well, no, mate, I'm sure, we can't talk about it totally for the next half an hour, but
no,
I really do, want to catch up with you in person and go through the photos and because I think it's very easy for me to stay up here in my real estate world and just be living appointment by appointment, but, to try and get some consciousness of what it is that you've experienced over the last 6 or 7 days, I think I'd really, really like to do that.
And you know what else was interesting in a property sense was the location of some of the homes. I've took photos of these beautiful properties, and this is what I'm saying about WA. We probably don't do enough of this sometimes. The beauty of some of these homes in some of these locations, yes, it's a walk, but what I probably, because I'm passionate about property, I took particular notice of, like even today, where there was this sole home and a really nice home. It was difficult to get to, but we got a photo of. And you think, wow, how did they get that? And what do they go through to build that home in that location? So that was really interesting. And you go through Gracetown, where there's been a fair bit of tragedy, you'll remember. And so there's, some of the properties where they're built and where they're located. So the beauty of where people are living, other than just the track, it's like when you went and visited and stayed at your sister's place. Remember down south?
Yeah.
You find these properties and these locations that we probably live in our own little world and don't realise the beauty and the locations of some amazing communities and some fabulous properties around the traps.
Yeah, and I think it's those sorts of places. I mean, Ferguson Valley is the area that you're referring to, where my sister lives,
Yep. Yep.
and it's nothing even like the country that you've experienced over the last week. But even I know, just because the number of properties in Ferguson Valley, it's quite finite. It's, there's I don't know what the number is. Maybe there's a couple of hundred properties, or maybe it's 300
Yep.
properties in total, and it's a location where the scarcity or of the availability of properties is so small, and it's so remote, and it's just so scarce that if people want to get into that location, sometimes they will pay whatever it takes. And I know that, and that goes as well for the people that own the property that are looking to sell. I was talking with my sister and brother-in-law recently, and there's people that live down there in Ferguson Valley, and this is just one example, but they live in Ferguson Valley, and it's such a beautiful spot in such high demand that in order for them to sell, they always have to look at, well, where am I going to go next? Like, how am I going to be able to replicate this? What am I going to do with my money? And there was one particular example where the property is probably worth maybe 1.5 mil, because they've got acreage out there, and someone came along and offered them around about $1 million, not my sister, but someone, a next door neighbour, around about $1 million more than what the property was worth, based on the sales evidence. But someone really wanted to get into the area, had sold a business of theirs, so they were financially, pretty well sorted, and were prepared to pay well above what the market value would have been. And the seller, the neighbour of my sister, considered the offer of $1 million more than what the property was worth, but in the end declined it, because there was just no purpose in. Sure, they'd get an extra $1 million for their property, but where are they going to be able to recreate that sort of a lifestyle living? And so therefore just not prepared to give it up even for such a premium on the price. So I dare say, with some of those even more remote locations that you're talking about, where the properties are so unique and even more scarce, who knows what those properties could be worth, because it's very hard to replicate.
Yeah, and another place you went to, which is where we finished. So you finish at the Augusta Lighthouse. That's the end of if you're walking north to south. So a lot of people do south to north, so walking from Augusta back up to Cape Naturalist. But we did the other way around, which is more often north to south, and I'm glad we did, because we had the wind behind us today, which was a good thing. But the Augusta, I'd never been to, and it's just beautiful. I intend to ensure that I get my little princess and we go and explore a bit more, because we don't do that. And this is not just for people that are in WA, but hopefully there's people outside WA who are looking at WA and probably don't even know half of these places we're referring to. But yelling up Augusta, Gracetown, Bustleton, Vass, Margaret River, and there's other little communities beyond that. It's just beautiful. And I think the fact is that there's lots of people that are aware of it, but there's probably lots of people that aren't aware of these locations, be it for holiday, be it for an investment property, or be it somewhere they want to live. And some of it is all about lifestyle.
Yeah. And like me, I know of a few of these places by name, but I don't know anything about the country out there, or the housing, or the economies as well. So we just get trapped in our little bubble, and then something like the Cape to Cape comes along, where once you commit to it, I guess you commit to it for a good week or 5 to 7 days, and there's no mobile phones, I'm thinking, so far as work or the job or whatever. You just disconnect from your normal community and your normal, what you do with your time, and you get to experience that, mate. So I'm glad it's been a fantastic experience for both of you.
Yeah, no, it has been. But as I said, it's also been interesting in a property sense. Hey, listen, I think we should go straight through, and I think it's time for OD stats.
Oh.
Over to you. It's time for stat time.
Okie doke. Well, I will jump straight into this, because I am a bit prepared for today. All right, so our real estate sales stats in Perth for the last 7 days, up until Friday last week, there had been 1,017 transactions, 1,017 properties that went under offer, which is a very, very high number. We know that our normal market conditions is 500 to 600 properties a week. And then we've seen over the last 18 months, really, since COVID started, and we came out of COVID and learnt what COVID could do, our Perth market over here really rebounded straight out of COVID very, very strongly. And we saw that 500 to 600 properties go to 700 to 800 properties. And now when we see a figure of 900 or 1,000 transactions in a week, we're not overly surprised, or certainly I'm not overly surprised, because I look at those figures every single week. So we're also in our busiest time of the year, which is what we call the spring selling season, or the spring summer selling season. And just to give you an indication as to what that means, this week we've had sales of 1,017 properties. 4 weeks ago, which was much closer to the start of the selling season, was 880 properties. So even in the space of 4 weeks, we can see that the number of transactions is really starting to escalate. And so there's an extra 137 deals in the last week than where we were at this time a month ago. In terms of where, a comparison to where we were 12 months ago in the same week, there was 848 sales in the same week last year. So that's a 20% reduction in the number of transactions last year compared to where we're at today. Firstly, 20% is quite a significant jump. And secondly, it was a really, really busy time. If we can remember, last year, the real estate market really was in full swing, because we were around about 6 months out of COVID. Our market was just going very, very strong. So that's where we are on the sales front. So far as listings are concerned, we're still very light on in terms of the number of listings through WA, 8,550 listings. That number really needs to be around about 11 to 12,000 listings. That's where there's enough supply for the amount of demand that's out there. A few weeks back, we did drop down to almost 8,000 listings, and that sprung back up to about 8,500 listings now. This time last year, again, 12 months ago, there was 10,379 listings available. So that's a 17.6% drop today compared to where we were at this time last year. So again, percentage-wise, it's really, really big figures. And if you talk to any buyers out there, they'll be telling you, there's just not enough properties out there, and they keep missing out on properties, even when they're prepared to offer full price, when they've got their finance in order. It's really difficult for buyers out there, and they keep missing out on properties. Rentals-wise, again, our rental market remains as strong as what our sales market does, which, as we've mentioned a number of times before, it's a bit unusual to have both markets running so hot at the same time, but it's something that we've consistently had over the last 12 months. In Perth, there's been 691 properties leased in the last 7 days. This time last year, it was 779. So there's a few less properties leased as at today, but that's not in any way related to the demand. It's just entirely related to the supply. There's many people out there looking for rental properties. I had a home open tonight. And just listening to the same story that I hear from just about all tenants, there's many people after a short amount of stock, multiple applications coming in, people offering more than what the asking price is, but still there's only a certain number of properties to go around, and people are missing out on rental properties with all those points that I just mentioned. There's 2,237 properties available in Perth at the moment. Normally that figure, well, not normally, only a few months ago, that figure was around about 3,000 properties. And at 3,000 properties, we've got a vacancy rate of about 1%. So now at 2,237 properties available, we're clearly well below the 1% vacancy market. And that is rental crisis conditions here in Perth. 12 months ago, same week last year, 2,879 available properties. So that's a 22% drop today compared to where we were at 12 months ago. So again, very, very tight conditions, TV. It's no surprise. It's not really new information on the sales front or the rental market that I'm reporting there. It's consistently strong numbers in both, and consistently the same story in terms of great demand in both markets, the rentals and the sales, but the supply is just not enough. It's very, very limited. And as you had requested, I have done a bit of a analysis of what's going on in the rental markets in our regional areas, and particularly the area that you have spent walking 120 Ks in the last 7 days. So if you want, I can tell you a bit about that.
I would love you to talk about that, because I think we're very much WA, and we need to. We haven't done much from the southwest, so I thought it was a great opportunity to perhaps touch on that. So yeah, if you've got some info, what are your thoughts?
Mate, I will. But before I even get to the southwest, let's just quickly touch on the Midwest, because normally at the end of my segment, we have a few Geraldton people that are in touch with us, and obviously, business wise, and even pay attention to our show. And so the rental market in Geraldton, as at today, this is the worst or the tightest I've ever seen the rental market in Geraldton, certainly in my 10 years of having anything to do with Geraldton.
You're not going to tell me below last week, are you?
I'm going to tell you, I've never ever seen it this low. But if you're looking for a rental property in Geraldton, and this is the whole Geraldton region, not just Geraldton, the suburb, but the whole Geraldton region, there's a total of 34 properties available in the entire Geraldton. Yeah. Now, it was only a few months ago, TV, that number was up around 60, 70 properties, which even at that time was really, really low. So as at today, a few months later, we're half that figure at 34. And even with those 34 properties, a number of them have already got applications on them. So, and we know that the new housing supply in Geraldton, it's just not coming from anywhere. So that rental crisis in Geraldton is just getting worse and worse. It's really, really sad, because there's some really good applicants out there. There's a number of genuine people as well. And when they ask you about, well, how come my application wasn't successful? The answer is, well, you have got the income, you have got a good rental history, you are a really good applicant or candidate for the house, but the owner, the landlord, can only choose one party for the property that they've got. So It's not that you've got anything wrong with your application. We just don't have enough stock to meet the demand that's out there. So absolutely a rental crisis in the Midwest, just like it is in Perth. But moving on to the southwest, exactly the same story. And maybe it's even tighter than it is in the Midwest, but it's certainly, the same story in the southwest. So if we're looking at Margaret River, in the whole of the Margaret River region, so not just Margaret River, the main town centre, but the whole Margaret River region, which is like those suburban areas around the suburb, there's 4 properties. 4 in the whole of the Margaret River. Yeah, so if you're moving down south or you're moving around the down south area, there's 4 rentals in the Margaret River region to choose from. 4. If you're in Yellingup, there's 1. There's 1 rental property. You have a look on realestate.com, and if it's not on realestate.com, it almost doesn't exist. There's 1 property in Yellingup. Augusta, there's 0. There's not one single rental property available today in Augusta, not one. Bunker Bay doesn't even exist as a category. So if you look at Eagle Bay, which is around the same area, none. There's not one single property available. And in the whole of the Busselton region, and Busselton's much bigger, you'd expect that, there's going to be a lot more properties available. In the whole of the Busselton region, there's 5 properties available. So
that is just extraordinary.
If we went back 12 months ago, TV, around about this time, even a couple of months, 14 months ago, and you and I were talking about the rental crisis and the state government's position on it, and we were leading up to a state election and all that sort of stuff. We'd spoken about this crisis is firstly a crisis. It's probably going to be a lot worse than what the media is talking about, and certainly the level of attention that the government is placing on it in the lead up to the election. But these numbers that I'm reporting today, firstly, are real, they're anecdotal, and they really paint a very stressful picture for those that are renting properties. So it's good for landlords, I guess, but if you're a renter, it's a real crisis in terms of having a roof over your head.
It's really interesting because, and as I say, a lot of the conversation is associated with my little hike this last 5-6 days. But I came across a young lady that we came across a young lady in the middle of the never, had a very large backpack on her back, and she and her partner decided to walk with us for a period. And we were having a chat, and in fact, she asked some really interesting questions, which I'm going to answer. I told her about our podcast, of course, and I had my Property Avenue WA cap on, of course. And so we were talking, and she's involved in housing, and I'll be a little careful what I say here. But her comment was, and she is involved in the housing industry, but not in real estate as such. But her comment was, there is things happening with the government, and they're throwing money around, but they're not doing anything with it. Now, that was the comment made yesterday in the middle of the Karri Forest, and it was a really interesting conversation, and she was really quite straight down the line with regard to it. That in basic terms is that they're throwing money around, but what's it achieving? It's not doing anything. They're just throwing money about, but there's no game plan. There's nothing set. And I said, it's funny you say that, because my partner and I, my buddy and I that do this podcast, we've been saying that, and he in particular has been quite animated about the fact that this should have been sorted out a long time ago, and it's still not being sorted out. And her comment was, yes, and that's how it was going. So, and when you give us figures like this, what are people doing if you suddenly get a job and you've got to move to these areas? We spoke to a tradie a couple of days ago on the trek, and he was from the local area, and he said, I've taken the day off. He was going for a bit of a 10K hike for the day or something. He was I think he was a carpenter, but his issue was, and I said, oh mate, look, we do a property podcast, interested to know what you do, etc. And he said, we are struggling to get materials, struggling to get people to do the work, because the people are ordering what they want to order, but we can't get the materials. So it's the same old stuff everywhere. So it was interesting, the different people that we talked to. And my argument is, when people come down here to live somewhere because of their work, where are they going to live? Yeah.
Well, it's a real major problem, because then you've got corporates, you've got businesses themselves, big or small, that will go in there and enter this residential housing market, because they know that if they don't do that, they just can't get the workers. So they'll go and rent houses, whatever they can get, basically, but preferably the bigger, and then they'll just rent as part of their employment packages. They'll just rent out rooms, shared housing accommodation, basically for their workers. And that's one way of doing it, and that's happening not just in the southwest. Absolutely, it's happening in the northwest as well.
And
it's a real problem. I mean, but businesses have probably got a greater affordability than Ma and Pa Joe that that have got just a family that lives in the region and probably always has. And when these rents start skyrocketing, when there's just no supply, as what I've just demonstrated, and landlords are sitting there going, well, you've been paying $350 a week for the last 3 years, but now I know that I can get $450 or I can get $500 a week. They either say, look, you either pay up or you're going to have to move out. Where is it that these people can go? And secondly, if and most landlords, certainly the ones that I come across, are very reasonable. If a house is worth $350 a week, but it's now worth, say, $450 a week, a landlord might say, "Look, it is worth $450. You've been a good tenant. Instead of $450, what about $400?" And then, or maybe $425. Like, give them a loyalty discount for being a good tenant. But that rent definitely does need to rise. But then it comes back to the affordability of the tenant as well. And, can they afford to pay the higher rent? Have they got the disposable income to allocate toward that? And if they don't, where are they going to move to, and how are they going to be able to afford the rent there? So the crisis is not just for people that are out there looking for rental properties, because they just need a roof over their head straight away. The crisis is also for people in rental properties that are faced with these market conditions, that they haven't done anything to bring these market conditions on, but that's something that they have to face. So, yeah, no, it's a real crisis in terms of what the state government's doing, not wanting to point fingers too much and saying that they're doing nothing, because I'm sure they're doing something, but too little too late. But in particular, this crisis isn't about to go away. So what does the next 12 months, what does 2022 look like? And I don't have an answer for that.
Well, on those figures that you're giving, when you're talking about 34 rentals in the Geraldton region and 4 in Margaret River and none in Augusta and 5 in Busselton and 1 in Yellingup, it's not looking too good, is it? We talk about the building industry and when all these construction things are going to happen. But, my God, and then you talk about what's happening in Perth itself when you're suggesting that we need, what do you say? We need, what do you say the rentals were? Something like 2,000?
Oh, no. Yeah, rentals is just over 2,000 at the moment, but and a few months ago it was 3,000. But ideally, we'd want that figure for the rental-wise to be between 5,000 and 6,000.
Yeah. And that's the same. So we're a long way away, and that's not going to happen with a wave of a magic wand, is it? It's just not going to happen.
No, and even because there's a couple of reasons why. One, obviously, is, and we've known about this over the last 12 months, a lot of people that have had these investment properties, like they've got their own home and then they've got 1 or 2 other investment properties that they put tenants in there, because the real estate market hasn't been great over the last 5 or 6 years. Now that the market's recovered a bit, a lot of people have been selling their investment properties. So I've got a lot of tenants that come to me looking at properties that I've got vacant, and they need to move out because the property that they're currently renting is being sold. The problem with that, though, is that most of the time it hasn't been attractive enough for investors to buy those rental properties, and so those rental properties have actually been leaving the rental market, and they've been bought by owner occupiers. So that places a further pressure on the rental market supply. Then there's the other thing that you touched on before, and that is about the construction industry. For those that are building new properties, there's delays in the timing to build those new properties because of the labour shortage and then also the material shortage. So I don't think it's fair to say that this is all the state government's fault or what they're doing.
No.
If we do go back 12 months ago, and we know that around the state there was 12 or 1,300 state government-owned properties that were sitting there that needed refurbishment work, that could not have tenants until they had this refurbishment work done. That's a lot of houses that could house a lot of families, a lot of people, that they could have done something about last year, basically. So anyway, they could have done some stuff, but I think that the sad thing is what 2022 looks like for people that are currently out there in the rental market. It's really hard going.
Is this not also, we talk about people selling their rental property, but is this not also an opportunity to go, hey, this is maybe a window of opportunity to buy a property for investment purposes? To my way of thinking, this would be the opportunity. Sure, there's going to be those people that have said, enough's enough, I've had enough of this. It's time I moved, did something else. but surely it would also be an opportunity for the other side of the market, and those go, you know what, I'm going to do something else. And excuse me, did I not read or see? Not that I've done a lot of reading this week, but did I not see some suggestion by a professional suggesting that the stock market might be a challenging period over the next 12 months, and you need to be careful with regarding your investment decisions? I'm sure I read something on that. Yep.
Well, I think the market's been a bit flat over the last couple of months, and I don't know. I didn't read anything as to what the stock market might do, but I mean, the stock market's always got that volatility about it, and particularly with some of the bigger economic issues that are going on in the world to do with free trade, emissions targets that people are going to be committing to, the ongoing challenges of COVID, and things that affect free trade between countries, that will affect ASX or just stock market publicly listed companies in terms of their value, and therefore that will affect people who are choosing to invest in the stock market as their primary form of investment. But going back to your original point, is now not a great time to be investing in WA? I'm not even selling real estate in WA, and in the time that I've been around the industry, circa a quarter of a century, I honestly have never seen such a great time not in my history have I seen such a great time to invest in WA real estate, because our prices are still comparatively low. They have moved up a bit, but they're still comparatively low to the eastern states. Our rental market has never been stronger in my living memory, and nor have our interest rates been so cheap in my living memory. So those are the three key things in terms of the investment decision. And from the capital value point of view, you obviously want your investment to increase in value. And I think we've got a good couple of years of values increasing for people that are holding properties. So I really do think it's a great time to be investing. And I know for a fact, and from the inquiry that I received, the eastern states markets, people or investors over there are looking at WA, and more than looking, like they're actively buying. I've had a guy chasing me that I've had a relationship with on the phone for the last week and a half, and almost every day I'm talking to this guy because he's wanting to buy a property. He can't get here to see it himself, but he's very astute. He's got access to all the databases and Google Earth and RP data and sales evidence. Like, he's got access to everything, but he just can't be here to physically see the property. So he's using me for that. He'll buy one. I've got another one to go and look at for him tomorrow. And then I'll look after the management and the tenanting of it. But and he's just one of many I know that are in the eastern states seeing WA as a great market to invest in. So I think it's only a matter of time until we see some more localized investment from WA people themselves. But certainly the eastern states investors are taking note.
Yep. And that to me, that was just always going to happen if it hasn't already happened. I just think that's, and it'll be interesting to see too whether that, whether that will change even further once the borders open up a little bit and we've got a little bit more flexibility, if you like, of moving from state to state. I feel that might influence things even more so.
Yeah, I definitely do. And just whilst you mention it, I know of a couple of larger companies, basically institutions, that they bought large property holdings over here, or rather portfolios of properties, when they just see WA as a great opportunity, and not just Perth, like I'm talking regional WA, and they see it as a great opportunity for returns, not only capital returns, but also monthly returns, a rental return for their investors. So yeah, it's and I think we're off the bottom. There's no question we're off the bottom of the market. For those that are selling their investment properties, they probably just had enough. and are not prepared to take the risk that in 12 months' time they'll be in front of where they are today, or in a couple of years' time they'll be in front of where they are, because they thought that at the time that they bought their investment properties, and unfortunately the market didn't produce. So now I think they've just chosen to divest, but that opportunity that they're putting their property on the market and selling, it really becomes the opportunity for the next investor. But right now, the owner occupiers are dominating that play.
Yeah. Hey, the storm that we're experiencing or have experienced. I mean, I spoke to someone today up in the Geraldton area. 26 mils of rain it had at one stage this morning, which is not ideal for the poor old farmers that are trying to, getting started harvest, etc., and that has all sorts of impact on them. And then, with this sort of rain, damage to crop and winds, the damage to crops. But then, of course, the dampness, it could be another week or two before everything dries out and they can get back onto doing what they want to do. So that's the impact. But what about I saw a brief snippet of the news and a bit of destruction happening. Already pressure on the building industry, already pressure on the tradies, already pressure on supplies. We don't need this sort of stuff happening all of a sudden in October either, do we?
No, it's not ideal, but I think it's very short term. The weather today, compared to the beautiful weather we've had really over the last week, but the weather today is it's a little bit of a one-off, and maybe I think it'll clear up a bit more tomorrow. I think there's a bit more rain and a bit more stormy stuff tomorrow, but it hasn't been great today, and it's always easy to say that when we've had a few perler of days over the last week. So. So far as the farmers are concerned, hopefully it passes and doesn't slow them down too much, because up until this point they've been having a bit of or been preparing for an absolute bumper season, haven't they?
Yeah, big time. So, mate, me buddy is that exhausted he's gone to bed.
Has he?
Yeah, he's gone non-ice.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I might add, mate, we've been getting up. He gets up at 4:30. I've been getting up about 4:45. We prepare brekkie. We do, and brekkie's short and sweet. And then off we go. Because we got to drive the cars, and then we've started walking by 6:37. And you're walking for the best part of yesterday. We didn't get home till 5 o'clock at night, so it's a long day. But anyway, yeah. So it's very interesting. Hey, listen, so there's that part, and the other thing that I was going to mention, I was going to do property headlines, but we really haven't had too much. But I'm going to do Discover Answers, because I've had a couple of questions asked of me on the track, would you believe? And I thought we'll quickly do that, because you ready?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a bit slow. One of the questions I've asked of me is, and I'll get rid of this. I told you expect anything tonight, and anything you're getting. So one of the questions I've had is conveyancing fees, and the young lady, I'll call her the Greek goddess. That's what they called her yesterday. They were calling her the Greek goddess. She was a delight. It was very funny, and she was going through a bit of pain and grief. She had a great big pack on her back, cutting stuff down, and he's disappeared. She had this great big pack on her back, and she was suffering with blisters, and then she was asking some questions. She's got an investment property in Bunbury, and in the discussion she had, which is something that you touched on earlier, she's decided that although her property manager said you're going to increase the rent quite significantly, she decided to keep the rent as it is, because she's got a good tenant. Night, darling, be good. She's gone to bed. Poor little love. So she decided to keep the rent as it is, because she's got a good tenant and wanted to look after that tenant. So that's, not, you get this publicity where landlords are all, trying to rob everybody and not be fair. And yet I've spoken to a number of people on this, the Greek goddess, as I will call her. She was quite adamant that she was going to look after the tenant. The tenant had been looked after the property, and she was happy to keep the rent as it was, which I might add was $350 a week for a 3x2, I think it was, in Bunbury.
Yeah, mate, I deal with a number of landlords.
Sorry, go on.
I was just going to say the publicity, it makes for a good story and for viewership when, you've got landlords that apparently aren't doing the right thing. And most of the time, it's not the landlords that are doing the talking on a current affair. It's normally, disgruntled tenants. And there's normally two sides, maybe even three sides to the story. But the majority of landlords out there are they're people. They're very empathetic and very sympathetic, and they do the right thing by humanity, basically. So, and I deal with these landlords day to day. So most of the time, they are very, very normal, empathetic people.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. But the question she was asking was conveyancing fees. And she said she bought an investment property and she's doing a tax return, and she was told that she wanted to know whether the conveyancing fees were tax deductible. Now, we will get someone professional, because I haven't had the time, of course, and haven't had the communications available to me to check this out. But as far as I'm aware, the conveyancing fees for a commercial property are tax deductible, but they are not tax deductible for a residential property. But we need to check that, so please don't take that as gospel. But it's my understanding that the conveyancing costs associated with residential property are not tax deductible. I think they are at a point when you sell it at some point, but that's something we'll get a professional in to discuss, and maybe we get an accountant in to discuss various things associated with what is and isn't deductible associated with property. And I do know things like stamp duty, for example, you can't claim those. But again, you get your own independent advice before you take this as being gospel. But I think with regard to, and you may know this being heavily involved, that's your business, professional property management. What the legal fees associated with the property management side or investment property for the property management side, they're tax deductible, are they not?
100%. Yep.
So that's hopefully that answers. Well, it sort of answers the question, but we will check that out. The other interesting comment, not so much a discovery of the answer, but I was told that a master bedroom, you're not allowed to call the master bedroom a master bedroom anymore. Have you heard about this?
I've never heard about this. This is the first that I've heard of it. It doesn't make a whole lot of. I can see with the way society's going and not talking about his and hers and him and she and he, all that sort of gender differentiation. I could see it possibly heading down that track, but I don't know. From my own personal point of view, TV, I think it'll be a sad day if we're not able to refer to the biggest bedroom and the main bedroom of the house as the master bedroom.
The explanation given to me was not to do with gender. It's my understanding it was to do with slavery. We call it the woke society, and yes, it's not getting any better, is it? When we're going to talk about we're not allowed to have a master bedroom anymore in the house. I'm not quite sure what we do call it. The big room, the big bedroom. Yes. If you, maybe it's an if question. If you had to rename the master,
are we allowed to call the games room a games room anymore?
Well, who knows? Who knows? I don't know.
Maybe the God, it's absolutely getting ridiculous. So I don't know if I was on the walk and I came across the person that suggested to me that the master bedroom is not, it can't be called a master bedroom anymore. And I was on the walk and it was towards the end of my day and I was getting tired and my calves were hurting or whatever. I don't know how I would have reacted to that sort of a statement. I probably would have let loose.
I have just got a lovely message from the lovely Sandy Wormold. And Sandy's from Stuart Title, and I've got to go back to the guys there when I get back to contact Kieran, who's a mate of mine, who's the boss of Stuart Title in Australia, because we've been dying to get them on board because that's all to do with title insurance, which I reckon is a really interesting topic. And she's flying to Geraldton. She's getting up there and they're doing a sundowner on Thursday night. And unfortunately, Sam, I won't be in Geraldton to enjoy that, but I'll try and catch up with her. She follows us quite regularly. So, she's Stuart Title insurance is something that I really would like to, I'm slinking in my chair. It's title insurance is something that I really would like. I think it's a really interesting topic on a very general perspective that people not always understand what it's all about and how it works. So we'll, and the guys have said they've got someone that'll come on board as a guest. It's up to me to get it organised and I'll make sure I do that. So Sandy, good to hear from you. Hey, listen, you can have a little drink for me, a little extra drink for me when you get up there on Thursday. That's the only questions I've got, but I am intrigued about the master bedroom. We won't go on too long, but I have got your favourite segment.
The notice board.
You know, you've got it. What's on the notice board? I'm on my iPad tonight, so the music and the timing is not quite as we would expect. Anyway, what's on the notice board? What I can tell you is that tomorrow, and I've got to remind him when he gets up in the morning, that my hiking buddy, he won Jamie Forrester, commonly known as JK. It's his daughter, Emma. It's her birthday tomorrow. So happy birthday, Em. And I'll make sure that Father Bear gives you a shout and says happy birthday to her tomorrow. It's also my cousin's birthday. Now, Kim's probably very well known. He used to have the Blue Duck Cafe in Cottesloe. Have you ever been there?
Oh, yeah, many times.
And when the America's Cup when we won the America's Cup in 1983.
83.
Yeah, 1983. I was up in Port Hedland then and watching it all hours of the morning, and that was very exciting watching that last night. But he was involved in that. They did all the planning at his pub, at his bar in Claremont. So he's my cousin, and he'll turn 65 on Sunday. He will be, Kimbo.
Fantastic.
So he's got a hotel called, I think is it the St George or something, on the border there between Canberra and New South Wales, and he's created a fabulous place there. So anyway, we wish him happy birthday. The other thing that's on the notice board that you probably weren't to know is that Thursday, the 21st of October, is Get to Know Your Customer Day. And I think that's a very, very important one, because something that's impressed me, well, yesterday we finished our walk and we drove our car, and there's this poor lady sitting there on her own with a backpack on her back, and we'd only seen her a day or two before on the track, and the driver that was meant to pick her up had forgotten her.
Oh.
So this poor lady, who fortunately, would you believe, this is how small a world it is. This is how amazing this world really is. Day 2 of our track, we're walking along, and there was these two ladies up ahead of us. We didn't know they were ladies at the time. And we thought, and I said to JK, we'll probably catch those two the way we're going. Because I called him Choo Choo, because he goes that quickly, you think he's catching a train. And anyway, he said, no, we won't catch them. Anyway, lo and behold, there was a very rocky section, and we did catch them. And then this lady turned around and we said hello. You talk to everybody, no matter where you go. You all stop for a minute or two. sometimes longer, to say how you're going, where you're heading, what's it like up ahead, what's it behind, rah, rah. And so we caught up with these ladies who were going in the same direction as us. And next minute she turns around, she gives this JK a big hug, and she's a relative of his. Hadn't seen her for ages. Here we are in the middle of the track.
Oh my God.
Unbelievable. So we said hello and we had a big chat and rah. And then, lo and behold, yesterday we're coming out, we've finished the walk, and we come out of the bush from nowhere, and she looks and she's thinking, oh, I hope they're not horrible people. And she realises us again, and we gave her a lift out and she were able to save her. So, but yeah, so get to know your customer day. It'd be pretty good to remember your customers, I reckon. if they go on the hike and you meant to pick them up in the middle of nowhere, and the poor girl. So we were able to give her some water. She'd run out of water. And so get to know your customer day is on Thursday. And certainly your business doesn't survive without your clients. So look after them and get to know what they're all about. And I think that happens in all businesses. And I'm sure you are a classic when it comes to looking after your clients. And also this, I thought this was a classic. We saw some big snakes while we were doing our walk, and we saw a very big, I'll post it. We saw this big racehorse goanna, bungar as they call them, sitting in the middle of the track, and he was big, and he looked at us too and thought, these two old blokes aren't going to run very fast. We stood there for some time. I am off from a distance, and I'm talking about 3 metres. He's a big boy.
3 metres?
Mate, he's standing on his legs looking at us going, I'm not going anywhere. What are you guys going to do? So Choo-Choo, one J.K. Forrester, decided to throw rocks at him to try and get him off the track. But we were on the ready to bolt the other direction if he started running. Because, mate, I don't know whether you know about this, but they run very, very fast. So, yeah, so National Reptile Day is on Thursday, and I think I'll recognise it in a big way because we've seen a few reptiles this week. It's been very fun. Yeah, but the big bunga. I'll post a photo. I think I took a video of it. I don't know about the commentary. If there's any swearing going on, please excuse the curse.
Look forward to seeing that.
It was very funny. Hey, mate, I think we'll finish up. We won't worry about headlines. We've done a fair coverage, but it's been an absolute pleasure. But before we go any further, we've got to do the if question. What's going on?
That's better.
That didn't work very well. Okay, the question is, and it's relative. If you're going to do a bit of an adventure in WA, and WA's got a huge variety of things to do, what would it be and where?
Well, I'm probably split now because I'd probably say Carragini is something just because of the photos that I've seen, the number of people that I know that have done Carragini National Park.
Yep.
But now, just knowing what you've done over the last week, mate, I really am intrigued to learn a lot more about it and to try and learn a bit more about your experience, not just from the sightseeing and the not so much tourism really, but just to.
I know we've done no touring.
I think it would have taken a lot of mental strength just to keep going and the night time and the early morning conditions and everything. And I really think it would have been a really special experience for you guys. So I could the Cape to Cape would definitely be on the list.
Oh, look, I'd recommend it, and you're right. It is a massive. There is. Look, I admire the people that are out there camping. I mean, on like a day and young girls, it was just quite staggering to see that they were doing this. and they were doing this, some of them on their own. It was just, it's quite staggering. But yeah, you're right. You get up and you have you've got blisters on your feet, your legs are tired, you get up in the morning again. And I said to JK the other day, a couple of mornings ago, I just didn't, it wasn't the slightest bit interesting me. I just felt I was tired. I got a sore hip. I had all the, and as he said, you stop your whinging, you sook, but you have your days and then you start going, you get out there and you start walking, and all of a sudden, it's like when you're training or you're doing a run or whatever, some days you don't feel like exercise. You go out and do it and you feel, gee, how good was that? I really enjoyed that. So it was, I've got to admire some of the people that were perhaps not as agile as we are. Some of the people that perhaps weren't as fit as what we are, and yet they were still doing it. And they may do it over a longer period of time. But yeah, it was the other one that a lot of people asked us about was the Bibliman track. But that's quite a biggie. And that's something that Mitchell Falls is another one that JK's done, and the Bungles. So there's plenty of options in WA. We're pretty damn lucky with some of the things we've got available.
So what's your answer to the if question then?
Well, look, the Cape to Cape was certainly the one that I entertained doing. I'd love to do something with my wife, of course, but what that would be next, I don't know, to be honest. I'd probably want to do something up north, in the northwest, or up in the Kimberleys. I think that would be something that I'd like to do next if I was going to do something in WA. That's for sure. Yep.
Sounds good, mate.
It's been a pleasure, been an absolute pleasure, and I do appreciate your time. For something that we had no plans for tonight, we've done an hour. So for those that enjoy what we do, look, please tell your friends. Please pass on what we're about. You can access us through Instagram, Facebook. We've got a Twitter account. But we do our live stream every Tuesday, and our podcast is available every Wednesday. And hopefully, if you've got some questions, please send them through to us through one of those mediums. We'd love you to join us, have a chat, whatever the case. We have a live chat every Tuesday. We may change it. I haven't even spoken to Oscar about this, but we may change it because we're so busy and we've got so much going on. We may change our live stream or whatever to a fortnight thing, but we'll have a chat about that. We'll keep you informed as to where that goes in due course. But travel safe, have fun. For those that are looking for a rental, we know it's tough, but keep it going. For those that are buying or whatever, please ensure you get independent professional advice. I forgot to do the disclaimer tonight, but please ensure that when you do what you do, make your decisions. What information we're giving is very general advice, but please ensure that you get professional independent advice when it comes to doing things properly. Look forward to seeing you all again next week. And, mate, I'll catch up with you for coffee when I get back to Perth. I'll be back Thursday, I think. Okay.
Sounds
Take
great.
care. Hang on, I better put my thing on. Can only apologise for the intermittent bloody whatever it was tonight.